It's crazy. This is our last podcast in 2025. This year just flew by, and to celebrate, we did something a little bit different with today's episode. Our No Gray Areas team went back and pulled all the best highlights from every interview we had this year. We've collected the most jaw-dropping moments, powerful nuggets of truth, and stories that stood out to us to wrap up such an unforgettable year of guests. For the last time, 2025, let's jump in to this episode of No Gray Areas.
I love the book Atomic Habits because
Great book.
It talks about doing those small little things that then will add up. Because I will tell you, as a perfectionist, it's hard. Like if I write a list that's too big and I can't get through it, it makes me feel like a failure. So I've stopped doing that, and I only write down the things that I for sure can get down and done. And if I can, then I'll go look at the other list and what can I bring over.
Yeah.
So I think that
You are so much like my wife. Yes.
I know, that's why I love being friends.
We were laughing before we turned the cameras and the mics on how much alike you two are, but that she would do the same thing. Like if she makes a list and she's not pretty sure she can get through it, it's going to really bother her.
Yeah. I'll actually stay up later to try to get it done, or it's just amazing. So I think if we're talking about New Year's, I love to tell people it's not a new you. I want it to be a better you. So what's one thing that you can do to better yourself? Because if every year you say new year, new you, then it's like, well, if I didn't become a new you, then I failed. Going back to that shame or failure kind of thing. What's just one thing that you can do to better yourself? Maybe it's you stop soda.
Yeah.
Maybe it's, if you love alcohol, it's one drink a week and not a glass of wine every night. If you eat out every day at work, maybe you choose to take your lunch twice a week and eat out 3 times. Those are small changes that that will add up. And then you don't feel like, oh gosh, I said I was going to stop soda, stop alcohol, go to bed earlier, get to the gym, and cook 5 meals a week.
Yeah.
God bless you if you actually get it done in the first month.
Yeah. It goes back to that acronym SMART goals, right?
Yep.
Where one of them,
Small,
the A in there is achievable or attainable. Yeah. And we do sometimes, especially in the beginning of a year, we write down 10 things that we want to do, and then we feel like we failed because of those 10. So you're suggesting just pick one thing that can start impacting.
I mean, I go back to thinking, your dad gave you a really nice car, and he wants you to, this car, if you take care of it, it's going to last forever. And then, you start beating up on the car and not taking care of it, how would he feel? So I think we've been given a vessel to do his work. I think by taking care of that vessel, it's going to be able to make you healthier. And I think when you're healthier for other people as well too. So spiritually speaking, for me, exercise is, it's one facet. The diet I feel is the most important as far as what your body is doing and that type of thing. But exercise now, as I've gotten older, is more of a mental break for me. So by able to step out and do an hour of something a day and just kind of disconnect from everything else, it provides clarity, and it's almost a spiritual thing as well too. So it just makes me better for the next part of my day. I think it makes me better as a person.
100%. Mindset is everything. In athletics, they're always saying it's 90% mental, 10% physical, or whatever. It's truth. Where is your mindset and the things that you're going through? You have to check that constantly. You have to reset it. Because just thinking in a negative light, you're putting all this added weight on top of you, you're draining your energy, and to ultimately lead you to failure. So as you're going through your life, and it's not just about goals, it's just going through your day-to-days. It's like something negative can happen, someone can put you in a bad mood, and it's just like, okay, just take a moment after that. Take a deep breath, just like recheck your mindset. Like, you know what? It is what it is. I got the rest of the day. Or you know what? Man, today was a bad day, but man, I'm going to wake up tomorrow, the sun's going to come up, and that's another opportunity. That's another day, and another day is a blessing. I think we just focus on what we don't have. We focus on the negative things. We focus on what went wrong, but the more you can focus on the positives, just adjust yourself, and adjust the way you think about things, and treat every day like an opportunity, then you'll be so surprised at how much further you'll get in life, but also how much more happy you're going to be. So, don't limit your potential. Don't limit your life by just, having that negative mindset. Force yourself to be positive, and that's going to open up a lot of doors for you in life.
Scott, you've witnessed so much violence and hatred up closer than a lot of us have. What moments gave you hope that change is even possible? Because here's what I find interesting about you. A lot of people that did the amount of work and undercover work and saw the hatred and violence that you saw could be very skewed and tainted at this point in their life, where you're at in life, and just looking at the world with negative lens. But even in your book, it comes out a couple of times where I see you still have a real positive view of humanity.
That's just me. Again, morals, values, how I was raised, my faith. But I'm a glasses half full optimist.
You absolutely are.
Every once in a blue moon, I'll have a bad night. I'll feel sorry for myself and cry about it, but I'm usually okay by the next day, But if I wasn't that way, I don't think I would have made it. Yeah. I don't think I could have done what I've done. Yeah. So it kind of leads me to second chances, third chances, fourth chances, 20th chances, I used to always, I had to re-explain this to my kids, because they're listening to me and they're following me and they're like, Dad, what's your favorite word? Accountability. Because I'd be in the FBI and I'd be like, you walk down the hallway to go into the building and there's all the virtues. There's accountability on the wall, but not to bash the entire FBI, because it's not all bad. I mean, just like anything else. But there was a lot of people in that building. I'd be like, you know what? You might do you some good to go down there and read what the hell accountability. So I was huge on that, right?
Yeah.
And holding a standard, and you just being responsible for your own actions. That's all.
Yeah.
But if you instill that heavily into your kids, then when it comes time to forgive somebody, they're coming back to me and they're going, but Dad, you said hold people accountable. And I'm like, oh, damn, I screwed up. Let me tell you the other side of the coin. Look, if your dad didn't get 20th chances, 25th chances, I would not be sitting here right now. Yeah. I'd probably be in jail or dead, That's what I'm talking about. So
all my employees, I'm super close with them, and I knew all about their lives, and you'd think we're friends. But at the same time, of all the managers, who had the biggest discipline stack? I did, because I held my team accountable, and they start to walk this line of, oh, it's all good, Haley's cool, we're friends. And then I warned them. I think a big thing was AirPods on the floor at that time, and I said, hey, if I'm telling everyone this right now, if I see an AirPod, it's an instant write-up. And I told everyone. The employees that were closest to me, they thought, oh, Haley's not gonna get us in trouble, and I did. And my team respected me. I stayed consistent. I held the same line for everyone. And and I realized that was a huge part of my success as a leader with people and achieving results. And that's exactly what I had to do my whole life with horses. The second I let them cross that line, I learned how to pick my battles. That was huge. And now I do that with people in my day-to-day relationships and everything.
You need to write a book someday about like this. If one of the chapters in there was about this leadership that you learned about how you deal with people, but it's the same way you're dealing with a horse. Mm-hmm. Like you're saying, the consistency. If that horse starts to think like, well, some days I can get advantage of her, and some days I can't, and she is going to try it fairly often, unless you're consistently showing that horse like, I'm in charge here.
I learned that belonging is showing up as your authentic self, knowing that you're enough. Belonging is a thing on the inside. Like when you have imposter syndrome, it's because you don't understand belonging. And when you can understand belonging, you will not have imposter syndrome, because you belong everywhere. You just need to know that.
That is so good. I actually am taking time to write down what you just said, because I think a lot of people deal with imposter syndrome. In fact, to your point, like when you were in high school, a lot of the people that you're sitting maybe in a boardroom and they're like, oh, they're the ones that have it together, just like you did in high school. And from the outward, everybody would be like, oh, she's definitely got to feel like she fits in or belongs. But when you start digging in to people and they get vulnerable and transparent with you, you find out that most people struggle with imposter syndrome.
Yeah, because they don't understand belonging.
They don't understand belonging. And what they don't understand about belonging, which is, again, showing up in your authentic self.
Knowing that you're enough. That's it. It's like, it's just done. Like, it's just like, there's so many people that like, quote unquote, made it, right? Successful in their mind in terms of, I can't believe I got here. It's like, well, you've been working towards it. Why is that hard to believe that you got there? It's like, that's what you've been working to obtain. And then you went there. Or it's like, you decided to go this path and it just kind of blew up for you, right? But you put in a lot of work there, right? But you have this imposter syndrome. It's because you don't understand belonging. You don't feel good enough about you.
And trying to fit in is exhausting, isn't it? Because
oh my God, you can't.
Point, you're wearing all these masks. And you got to put this mask on and this mask on, and which goes back to belonging as your authentic self.
And if you're trying to fit in, who are you?
Hey, we hope you've enjoyed this episode so far. Be sure to like and subscribe to not miss a future podcast. Okay, let's get back to the episode. One of the things that you said is we're the most fatherless generation in history.
Mm-hmm.
Speak into that for a moment.
Oh, brother. So in the generations before us, if dad was gone, it was because he was gone to work, or he was gone to war, or he was dead. All those things are bearable because dad's not here, but we know that he still cares about us. He's providing for us. He's doing what he needs to do to serve, or he's dead. And that's just a mourning process. But when dad is just not present, meaning he's emotionally not there, or he has chose to just leave, that's a wound that is new for humans. And we don't have a lot of history on what to do with the fact that dad just wasn't there. Dad didn't care. And not only did I not learn anything from my dad, his lack of attention, his lack of emotional availability to me has made me worse than I would have been had I not had a father. And so when I say fatherless, I'm not talking about whether dad's in the home or not, which, if you know statistics, dads aren't even in the homes. They're making babies, but they're not fathering. And so, you can go back thousands of years, and there was a prophet that said, there's going to be a time when I'm going to send an Elijah-like prophet, and he's going to win the hearts of fathers back to sons, and sons back to fathers. And that's not gender specific. I think that can be, mothers and daughters, and, it's just the family unit coming together. And I don't know why that would have been so relevant unless we were going to find ourselves in a time like we're in right now. Absolutely. So I take that as a very timely scripture to look at. What does it look like for God's voice to be over planet Earth right now? Specifically, if we're talking to America right now, and say, we need to see the heart, like what matters to me as a dad, turn fully towards my family. And in order for me to do that, I'm going to have to know what to do with me. And this influence that we talk about versus authority. God was very specific about he's assigned man to be the head of the home. It's an authoritative position that has been so misused that it makes most women that are hearing me right now even cringe to hear a man say, hey, God said I'm the one that has the authority in the house. But if that authority was demonstrated the way that we're talking about, is that all of my authority, that means my strength, everything that I have is to serve this family and to make it to where everybody wins above me. And I don't know what woman or what child wouldn't want that type of authority in their life, where we as men, being fathered by God, are now coming into what it looks like to be masculine, and that is to have authority that's presented in such a way that's so tender and kind and powerful and dangerous that everyone around us is going to see that I will yield to this because the only thing he wants is for me to be the best that I can be. And there's no bullying in it. There's no manipulation into it. It's not self-serving. And it really is what love looks like.
So this is a phrase I heard a long time ago. For me now, it's going back almost half a century. Man up. But that's a dangerous phrase.
It is.
Because the way I heard that phrase when I was growing up, whether it be from teachers, coaches, or my own dad, was man up, man, like stop crying. Like a man doesn't cry. which I don't agree with at all.
Right.
I don't think I was modeled toxic masculinity, but it became a masculinity that was confusing for me later, where I would hear that phrase like man up, man up.
Yeah.
Not a bad phrase to use, but only if we help that young boy or that young man understand what we mean when we say man up.
Right.
So when that phrase is used in a healthy way, what would that mean, or what would that look like?
And that goes back to what I said at the beginning. There is such thing as toxic masculinity. Yeah. If man up is drinking excessively, or jumping from bed to bed with whoever you want.
Which is what that's often taught, yeah.
Right. That is a toxic masculinity, because that's not what being a man is. Mm-hmm. You know, manhood, like any truth, is grounded in the Bible. Truth comes from God. Biblical masculinity is true, you know. So man up to me, there is a time where as men, we have to kind of man up. We have to show some resiliency. We have to be a voice of calm and reason, particularly if our family's going through a struggle. Maybe there's a financial hardship, for example, going on. I do believe that part of being the leaders of our home is putting on that brave face and saying, hey, we're going to get through this. We're going to continue to pray and seek the Lord through this. And he's going to bring us through this. Being that face for our men, for our families, there is a time to be, again, that reassuring, confident, quiet strength for our families. And I think they count on us for that.
What's a hard lesson you learned firsthand, and how has that shaped you?
Yeah, it's a great question, Pat. There are a lot of challenges we all face in life, but I think when you ask that question, the greatest kind of umbrella challenge that I've actually faced many times, I wish I would have learned that lesson earlier, is to have a dream, but then not put action to it. And so what I discovered as I was processing and even writing my book a number of years ago was I felt like God showed me I was at times a passive dreamer. And when you passively dream, it's more like a wish or a hope.
Yeah.
And I think so many of us have dreams that God infused in our hearts and minds, and we hold them at a distance because they feel out of reach, or maybe that's not for me, or maybe that's just a selfish desire. But when we hold them so far away, that passive dreaming rarely leads to any of them moving closer to reality for us. And so as a child, I dreamed about being an Air Force pilot. I wanted to be Air Force Thunderbird or Navy Blue Angel, and had hoped to go to the Air Force Academy. And one day ended up, I'm in engineering school in college, wondering, where did I miss that dream? Wow. I went and visited the Air Force Academy. I did tours and never took steps to pursue it. And really that shapes a lot of my story. And I've seen that unfortunately unfold a number of times, where there's this dream, but there's this reluctance at times for us to actually pursue it and have that courage. And so while there are other harder, more challenging seasons of life, I think when we lose sight of those dreams and don't pursue them, it leaves us in a situation that can be unhealthy, but also lead to despair and discouragement at times.
So often we make our decisions and we ask God to bless our plans. We say, God, I'm taking this step forward. God, please come along. God, follow me. And sprinkle your religious glory dust on this, God, on my decision. As opposed to saying, taking that step back and saying, hey, God, what are you looking to accomplish? And, it specifically was referencing, the account of, David and looking to build the temple. And he went to Nathan and said, I'm living in a house of cedar. God is, his presence is intent. I want to build a temple. And Nathan, looking at every outside, justification, reasonably and smartly said, God is with you, true. Whatever you seek to do, go and do it. And then God comes to Nathan that night and say, no, he's not the one that I've chosen. He chose Solomon to build that temple. And when you, even now, 2,000 years later, you put those guys side by side, I would think David would be the one that should have built the temple. It's
Solomon
not
was
like
busy with all his wives.
Exactly. It's not like 2,000 years has given us additional perspective on this as far as why God would say this is the who my choice is for this. But God had his choice. And if we're just looking to make the decision based off of all of those reasonable things, we can still have 2,000 years of history and make the wrong decision.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, if we do, at least, in humility, try to submit some part of that process to say, God, what are you trying to do in this circumstance? What are you trying to show me? What can I learn from this? Where are you leading me? And seek to discern that rather than just to land that decision. We'll find that it starts to change the decisions that we make.
You talked about identity several times too here, which I think, again, is probably the core of our issues, both positive and negative, right? Where does identity play into all of this?
We're born on this earth to do a certain thing that we believe. What happens, maybe over here you throw a ball back, we used to kick a ball back in England. Johnny, what do you want to be? I want to be a pilot. What about you, Billy? I want to be a doctor. What happened to them dreams? I'll tell you, they were kicked out of us by our family and friends. Don't be so stupid, Robert. You come from the project, you can't be a doctor. How stupid. Stop dreaming that. So they go. So once you find your identity, especially after addiction, depression, PTSD, the identity is snatched away from you. Because the identity becomes less than alcohol, PTSD, whatever it is, your identity is snatched. We see this a lot in married couples that split up. The woman has lost her identity. So she's left with nothing. Once you start to find who you are, what you're capable of doing, and what your niche is in life, you become a very powerful person. And those people, when they find that out, back away. Oh, no, stop it. Everybody listening to this right now is a natural born leader. You're not listening to this by mistake. 63 years on this earth, I'm telling you, I'm guaranteeing this, guys. If you think you fell on this podcast by mistake, you are mistaken, man. And I can tell you that you're meant to hear this stuff. When there's one person or other, you're meant to hear this stuff because I'm talking to you.
I hope our audience will really take to heart some things. One of the big things that I would encourage them to do, that I'm going to take from what you said, is to be very proactive in our calendars.
Yeah.
Our calendars say what we really believe in our living, not what we say we believe. And so be proactive on your calendar and make sure that whatever your calendar says you're doing reflects on your core beliefs.
Yeah, is what's in your
values.
calendar getting you closer to those goals, those dreams, those desires. One last thing, Pat, I love to ask audiences, hey, real quickly, write down the first 3 to 5 things that come to mind when I ask you the question, what's most important to you? And step back and give them 30 seconds. And then I know what they're writing down. And I know what they're not writing down. And so I'm setting up for this conversation about, being present. It's our family, our spouse, our children, our faith, our career. It's not our cell phone, Netflix, golfing. It's not. And
so look at your calendar.
Look at your calendar and see if do the two match. And when you see your calendar is full of appointments and conversations that are taking you away, there's so many layers to it. Do the notifications you get on your phone move you closer to your goal and dream? Are they distracting you and taking you off course?
Yeah.
Live intentionally.
We're not robots.
Yeah.
We have this analogy like, keep going, never quit. I get that. We can be that person. You're still human. Rest when you need to rest, right? Refuel when you need to refuel. Recover when you need to recover. But you still got to go to work.
Yep.
Manage your time. Manage what you do with your efforts. Balance the checkbook. You've heard the saying, balance meals. Balance. We are unstable. Our society is unstable. We live in an industrial society. Go, 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 go. Gotta go, gotta get it, gotta go, gotta work, I gotta work 12 hours. Hey, do this. I gotta get the kids to school. I gotta. Then what? You're moving on fumes. Reserve, preserve. Reserve, preserve. Reserve.
That's good.
You got to.
Yeah, that's
I
good.
didn't say go out here and be crazy.
Yeah.
I'm saying know when to fight and know when to be cool.
Yeah.
I, myself, am the calm and I am the storm. I'm both. That's me.
Yeah.
Never said you have to be like me. I don't do the calm and the storm. I'm both.
Yeah.
I know when to turn it up.
Yeah.
I know when to be cool.
And I like what you said, Coach Payne. You know, when I said, do you think it's a cultural thing? It goes bigger than that. It's a human thing.
It's a human
So
thing.
how do you, Coach Payne?
Yes, sir.
You deal with laziness because
All
you're
the time.
human. So
Absolutely.
how do you fight that?
Let's say this. I don't depend on my alarm clock, for example. Right? People say my alarm didn't go off. You don't have no idea how many times I've heard that. And some of my clients know how much that makes my gums itch.
Yeah.
I can't stand it.
If you start training me and I show up late and I tell you I better not say my alarm didn't go off, and I better not
That'll
show
be
up
the
late.
worst.
Probably.
That'll be the worst mistake you can make to me, because then
Okay.
I'll come back to this.
Wait, let me write that note down.
Yes, it's a fact. Because here's the thing: we depend on machines. We depend on a machine. Why would you wait for an alarm to tell you to get up? If God Himself has given you the air in your lungs and the heart that you have to beat, that's your alarm. God said, get up. Not the alarm, get up. My heart's beating. That's God saying, get up. My lungs are working. That's God saying, get up.
There's never a substitute for hard work. Hard work always pays off. Sacrifice always pays off. Tough times make tougher people. If you don't know what you can go through, you quit too early. I mean, I remember we full court pressed in 8th grade. In the first 45 minutes of every practice, we running suicides until we were about, because we had to be in that kind of shape to full court press the entire game. I look back on that now as a 47-year-old man, that shaped me.
Yep.
And they sucked.
When they're telling you to line up again.
Yeah, like listening to Jocko Willick's podcast and Navy SEAL stuff, which I've been fascinated with my whole life. It's like, he's like, it's discipline, it's not motivation.
Yep.
There's not one part of you that's motivated to get back in that water in Hell Week. It's discipline of hoorah, I'm jumping my ass back in this water.
True.
And not one man wants to get out from under that boat and get back in the water.
And I love Jocko Willick. He mentioned him. I follow him on Instagram. I love every day. He's got a picture. It's like 4:03. He's got a picture of
he
a drop
earns the
of
sunrise.
sweat on his,
That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm not great at it either.
Yeah.
But I have a lot more, I think, maybe because I'm just getting old, but maybe it's, I don't see that in the 15 to 25-year-olds that I run across now. Like, they've never had to, they go home, and I never went home with my mom and dad about how hard practice was. They wouldn't have cared. They just told me to go back and do it again, because apparently it wasn't hard enough if I'm complaining about it. Now all I see is, oh, well, we're going to go in and they want to complain about practice. Oh, I'm so sorry.
And
maybe you should quit.
They're going to go talk to the coaches.
Yeah.
About,
That's not real life. Going back to what sports teach us, only 1/10 of 1% go pro. 1% sign a Division I scholarship, and that's football. What is it? It teaches you life. It teaches you that tough times happen. Get your ass off the ground and keep moving.
Why do bad things happen to good people? Or if God is good, why does He allow suffering and evil? This is a question that we hear all the time, right?
It's brought up all the time. And so I like to push back and say, how is it even possible that good things happen to people? We live in a fallen world where, I like to say it this way, if Jesus is who He says He is, then there is a Satan, and he is here to kill, to steal, and to destroy. And anybody who's doing any kind of good, Satan just hates you. He laughs and mocks all of us when we go through hard times. And sadly, he doesn't always have to be used in a fallen world where we're imperfect, where we're dealing with selfishness, just personal selfish ambition. We tend to destroy each other, where I think Satan's like, you guys don't need me. You're destroying each other.
We do a pretty good job on our own, don't we?
Yeah, I really think it's that simple of an answer.
I like how you spun it around too. So you're saying that the evil in our world is caused by Satan or by
not
fallen
by
humans.
God.
It's not by God. And you flipped it around and you said, if you actually look around, you should flip that around and go like,
how is
there
anything
even good?
Yeah, and I think people resonate with that.
Yeah. So I know that the philosophers and theologians for 2,000 years have talked about beauty, truth, and goodness.
Yeah.
Even Aristotle talked about it. Plato talked about it. And then theologians picked it up and talked. So one of the things that I do a lot of times is in bed, before I go to sleep, I think about where did I see beauty, truth, and goodness? This kind of goes to your answer. Because every single day, I can give examples of where I saw something that was good.
100%. And it's a practice. You guys talk a lot about habits in this podcast. It's a good habit.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, there's no way to prepare for that knock on the door that you had, and I get that.
Right.
But at the same time, are there things that we would be doing now knowing that I'm going to go through some deep grief at some point?
Yeah, Pat, I would say ask people their story and tell your story. The more we're about the business of, again, not counting any pain as insignificant. It could be financial loss, it could be health issues, it could be relationship issues. Don't be afraid to tell your story, but if you're not in communities where that's accepted, where you feel like you're on the outside, always sharing your story but not hearing other people's because of the dynamic of that community, I would seek other communities. We've got to find places where, again, I don't want to be weird about this, but there's got to be moments and room so that I have a network of people that know me and that I'm getting to know them. I think that the church is a great place to do that. There are other groups that may be equally powerful. And that way, when that happens, I'm not prepared necessarily, but I've shored myself up relationally to where we're going to do this together. And we're going to link arms and we're going to walk through this together. If I don't have those relationships, when that grief happens, I've met so many people, sadly, heartbreaking, when they tell me I'm alone in this. I'm away from maybe family, I'm out of state, I'm new at a job, whatever it may be, and I have no one. And my heart just breaks for them. So you'll never be fully prepared, but when I know your story and you know mine well enough to where we're below the surface, then when one of us does experience grief, man, you're the first one I'm calling.
Yeah.
And so then we can understand it together and, again, pray for each other, walk through it together, and encourage one another along the way.
And then understanding that you're not alone. And one of the things about being alone, no matter what your situation is, sometimes going to a support group is what is 100% needed. And I could see that now that I volunteer my time to do that. Those weren't available to me when I was growing up, which is fine. I'm glad they're available now, because people do need to talk to others that are in kind of the same journey. And it doesn't, in my life, it doesn't matter whether I'm missing a hand and X person is missing a foot. We can still connect on some level and have some really good conversations about what it takes to navigate some of life's challenges, and maybe even tell a couple jokes to each other and be a little lighthearted about it.
Yeah. I love what you said that, about not being alone and going to people that are dealing with something, because that applies, again, for our audience that are listening, that applies to any of us, right? If you've lost a child, sometimes going to a support group of people that have lost children, you're going to connect and you're not going to feel alone, and you're going to have people that understand a little better than someone else that hasn't lost a child what that's like, or a divorce, or a loss of a spouse, or a loss of a limb, or we could go on and on with that list, right? So that's the value of that. So I hear you saying, like, one of the things you would really advocate for is for people, if you're going through something difficult, find a support group.
You need to be able to talk to someone in the same situation that you're going through. And you may not think so. You may think, hey, I got this, right? We all think that at times. Oh, I'm good, I got this. But I think there's so much power in being able to connect with others that are going through some of the same challenges, or maybe have gone through the same challenges.
What were some things that you started noticing about yourself, or she started noticing in these last 5 years of your career, that were warning flags that you might need to get some help?
Yeah, I think the biggest one, or the most noticeable one, and now that I'm talking out loud about this, it probably wasn't even the last 5. It was really the last several that were really tough. But absenteeism. I was becoming an absent dad. Like, I wasn't involved. I wasn't at the sporting events. I wasn't at dinner.
Like, you weren't even physically there, or you weren't mentally there? Like, you were there, but not there?
Both of those.
Okay.
Yeah, both of those. So there were a lot of times physically when I wasn't there just because of the call volume.
Yeah.
We just weren't around. Missed a lot of holidays, a lot of birthdays, anniversaries. But then when I was there, really wasn't there. Because I really didn't want to engage socially. Didn't want to go out with friends. Didn't really want to go to my kiddo's sporting event, because then I'd have to talk to people. The world became very, very people-y.
Would you have been able to articulate that at the time, do you think? Like, if someone would have said, you don't seem like you really want to be here, would you have been able to identify that that was true at the time?
Oh, yeah, I knew it was true. I don't know that I'd engage in the conversation. Yeah. Maybe. Depends on who's bringing it to my attention.
Yeah.
You know, I have this conversation with Melody. If Compassion Alliance existed back when I needed help the most, would I have sought help then? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe. Maybe not.
So you brought up, I think, a really important point. And this isn't just, audience, please hear this. This isn't just for first responders. I think it's for any of us that need help, and we all need help at times.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But you brought up that you had these, when I was talking about, like, you were involved in church and small groups and stuff like that. And you said, yes, I was, but I wasn't reaching out for help. What was inhibiting you from reaching out for help? And what do you think inhibits others from reaching out to help? I think there used to be kind of a, in the first responders world, veterans world, there is this mindset of like, I'm supposed to be tough and you know, I can't ask for help. Is that still
there? Was, and it's still there a little bit, but it's changing. It's definitely changing, but it's still there. It's absolutely still there. I think for me, I just didn't know how to ask for help. Like, I was never educated on that process. Nobody ever took the time to say, you know what? If you decide you want help, this is how you do it. Just do it, man. Find a good, close friend, a coworker, a spouse, whoever you trust, and just ask for help. Just start at one person.
Something that I talk about too, or I guess the light has been shed on me, is that there is another side. And that's one of the things that keeps popping up as I'm talking to other people within the limb loss community. I was born like this, which is a little different than somebody losing their leg in a motorcycle accident. But what keeps coming up as I talk to people is there is another side. And I shouldn't say sometimes, almost always, that other side is something better than they ever imagined their life could be.
Mike, that's huge. That's for any of us. Like, I know you're specifically dealing again with people that have lost a limb or born without a limb, but that other side, there is another side. That's what spirals us so often as human beings, doesn't it? Is when we don't think that there's another side, when we don't think things are going to get any better, right? So that's a huge attitude adjustment just to believe that.
You know, as you said, we don't know the twists and turns life is going to, bring our way. And one of the lessons, the most important lessons that I learned, is that we have, as we talked about, a choice, also how we look at our journey. So early on in my recovery, I learned about the philosophy and art of kintsugi, of taking a broken vase, putting it back together with gold inlay, and accepting and appreciating the cracks as part of the journey. And that gave me a way to talk about, the challenges and issues and things that I was going through, that this is part of my journey. Mm-hmm. And I can accept it and embrace it and learn from it and share it, but I can't change it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And also by recognizing that and reframing to not be a victim, but accepting the experiences as part of my journey, it was easier to talk about and to share with the other people who were also in my life impacted by this and needed to help me.
I also think, though, the waiting seasons we've walked through, thankfully, even early on in our journey of waiting in South Africa, waiting to come back to the U.S., we knew that we needed to turn it into a working season, even though we felt like so much was on hold, that those little moments of surrender he talks
Paige,
about.
Now I want to pause here again because I don't want our audience to miss what you just said. You were saying that you guys identified the fact that your waiting season, you would turn into a working season.
Yeah, we would say, we have to work the wait. It was truly a phrase that we would tell each other. It was a mantra for us every day.
Work the wait.
And even in a season where it very much felt like we were in a straitjacket. We couldn't do anything. We couldn't get a house, get a car, do literally anything. We were staying with his parents. He couldn't get a job. I'm working for a company in America, we're trying to figure it out, but we would say, we're going to work the wait. We're going to figure out what we can do. So even when we felt like there wasn't much, it's like, we're going to maximize this season and milk it for everything it is. And those were the little moments of surrender that he spoke about along the way. It was just like, okay, we're going to work this wait. And then on the back end of it, as we've walked through it, like you said, we haven't had so many things are unanswered. And I think that is life, right? There's so many things that we will never know on this side of eternity.
Right.
But we're grateful for the little threads along the way, where I think in so many of us, you'll see a little bit of I can kind of see that this had to happen. I wouldn't be here as Paige, the Paige that sits before you, if all this crap hadn't happened. You can't have this without that. And so it's just what he spoke about, finding purpose in our pain. And for us, that's been through sharing and through being vulnerable about what we've walked through, and just in hopes that, hey, we made it out on the other side with a little bit of hope, and still a little banged up and bruised up for sure, but God's healed that, and that's what brings the purpose, is even if it's to help one person know that they're not alone, it takes the sting out of the pain. But never really fully know or understand.
And I think that actually can give purpose to anyone in a waiting season. Is if you're going to be in a waiting season, you might as well be working in that season.
Get serious about telling your story. Because up to that point in time, we're both introverts. I doing this is hard. And so we just served for almost 40 years. We just served 30 years. We just served. As people crossed our paths, we served them. We cared for them. We loved them. We experienced heaven with them. We've trained people on how you do this. And that's what we thought we were supposed to do, one by one, couple to couple. Well, get serious about telling your story is a totally different deal.
And that's the intentionality part, right? Like, you've been given this moment. Yesterday's gone, tomorrow's not guaranteed, but you've been given this moment. So intentionally looking for those bubble moments and not missing them. Latasha, I'd love for you to speak into this for a moment too. So this podcast is built around the whole idea that we make our choices and eventually our choices make us. The complexity of what it means to be made in the image of God, that He's created us with the power of choice.
Sure.
And that's good and bad. There's both sides of that. But we've been talking a lot about crushings, the bathroom floor moments that you've been talking about, dealing with the difficult times. So just speak into a little bit about choices and the choices that we can make in those moments.
That's such a great question because, listen, I give God glory for everything I do. But I was on the Stairmaster this morning because that's been my new challenge, 45 minutes a day. I start off at like a 6 and then I go into 8s and then I'm even running now because I've been working at this. And I get up every morning and I do this. And while I was on the Stairmaster this morning and I was so excited to come here, anything that God says, this is what I want you to do, I'm so excited to talk about what He's done in my life. But He said, kiddo, I feel like that's how God talks to me. He calls me kiddo. You make a decision.
I've heard you say that a few times.
Yeah, it's like a personal thing.
I love it.
You get out of the bed. You've battled depression. You've battled anxiety. You've battled recent betrayal. You still show up to the gym and you meet me at the Stairmaster. And you pray. And you seek me. And no matter what sorrow or troubles you're going through, you still show up. And you have to get on the Stairmaster. No one's making you. You have to ride out the 45 minutes. You don't quit at 43 minutes and 45 seconds. You wait till 45:01 and you do it every day. Then you go and you lift the weights over there. And God love you. I didn't give you glutes and you still train those glutes thinking you're going to grow them. You're not, but I love you for trying. And He's like, and you're challenging yourself every day. You're making the decision to do that. I've given you free will and I say, pick up your cross and follow me, but you have to be the one to commit to your dream, commit to the vision, commit to who I called you to be. Guys, when somebody tells you you can't do it, you have to make the decision to believe their word or God's word. I tell you, I've been doing this for 16 years and I didn't have a lot of support. I didn't have a lot of people who believed in me. I lost family, I lost friends. I went through seasons of isolation, holidays, by myself, eating peanut butter out of a jar. You really get comfortable after a while of deciding, you know what, giving up is way harder than trying. Burn the ships. I've gotten this far and I can't go back now. So if you like me, great. If you love me, great. If you don't, great. You guys are not my God. And the only one that I can give credit to for giving me the will to survive and to flourish is that if He said that we could do it, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, then, and He died for me and He rose again, and the power of the living God resides in me, then how can I not show up to victory? It's scary. I was nervous coming here. This is such a huge blessing. I love that God's like, okay, we're going to put you on this podcast. I'm like, this is an amazing podcast. I used to do radio from my closet. I would sit crisscross applesauce and they would patch me into LA. And I thought that was like, oh my God, I arrived. You guys are like a whole operation here, and I don't take it for granted. I just think that in the moments where you feel like giving up, guys, you have to make a decision to say, what if I give up and breakthrough is right there? So I just want to encourage y'all, make sure that you're making the decision to choose to win because it's in reach.
As we're wrapping up this episode, be sure to leave us a 5-star review. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment on something you'll take away. All right, let's hop back into the remainder of the episode. Man, Joe, it's been kind of fun to see how this has grown, hasn't it? Because I think by the time this drops, we'll have over 130 episodes we've done. We've gone from a few thousand subscribers on YouTube to probably 300,000 plus by the time this drops. So seen a lot of growth, a lot of impact, and I know that's one of the reasons you wanted to do it.
When you guys asked me to come back on here a couple weeks ago, and yesterday I was thinking about the story, and I was thinking about some things, and I went back and I watched that first episode we did almost 4 years ago. Yeah. It's like I didn't have all the gray hair I have now, and I don't know if that's because of you. And
I have more gray hair too, so it might be mutual.
But
on my beard.
Man, it's crazy how far we've come with this channel and the purpose behind it, and so flippin' proud of what you've done. I throw compliments around like manhole covers.
I do.
And I think I told you a couple weeks ago, I was watching one episode that you did recently, and it's really cool to see how far you've evolved as well as the face of the franchise, so to speak, and the face of the podcast and the messaging and how you interact with people and the questions. So that's been great to see. And obviously what Riley's been doing behind the scenes on the production side and what Peyton does on the marketing side, you guys have really blown up the channel. The production quality is amazing.
Yeah.
The messaging's incredible. I do feel like we're making a change.
Yeah.
Some of the comments and some of the feedback we get is meaningful, so it's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Joe. That means a lot. But you bring up something that I think is so important for our audience to understand, because making a difference is the very first time I met you. When you reached out to me and we went to lunch that time, you talked about that. And then I've heard you say that so often. That's kind of a key thing for you, isn't it? Is to make a difference.
It is. And you know what, Pat, I've never actually asked you, do you think we're making a difference?
Oh, 100%. I get the privilege of sometimes showing up in a coffee shop around town or dropping into a place, and I'll run into someone that said like, hey, I listened to the podcast. And most people won't ever write and tell you this stuff.
Yeah.
So you don't get to hear. It's kind of like a speaker on a stage. Maybe there's 1,000 people in the audience. You don't get to hear how that might have impacted them. But I get to run into some people and they'll start talking about like how it impacted them or what they said, or we know there's those kind of stories out there, and there's a lot more that we
It's the little
about.
Things like that actually fill my cup and pushing to keep things moving forward.
So audience, send us some good comments every once in a while. Tell us how it's impacting you, because it was really your vision. It was your vision. It's one of the reasons you wrote the book. It's one of the reasons that we're making a movie. It's one of the reasons that we did this podcast, is to make a difference, to take your story, which we're going to get into in a second, to take your story and use it for good. And we're seeing that. I think we're going to see it even more so in the coming years, as our audience is about to hear. Man, these clips are just a taste of all the incredible conversations we had this past year, and we hope they encouraged you as you enter into this new year. As always, thank you again for supporting our podcast, and we can't wait for some amazing interviews to come. From all of us here at No Gray Areas, Happy New Year. And remember, we make our choices, and eventually our choices make us.